Hey everyone, welcome to lesson 4.1a entitled Cognitive Learning Theory. If you look down here at the bottom, you will see and connect with how bowling reiterates or is associated with cognitive learning theory, at least a component of it. Let's get started. So before we actually get to cognitive learning theory, let's talk and review what behavioral learning theory actually is. So remember, learning by definition is a relatively permanent change in behavior or knowledge as a result of experience. And you actually remember that from the behavioral viewpoint, the most important relationship is between the environment and the behavior, right? So changes in the environment will result in changes in the behavior. And we talked about this with relating to producing desirable behaviors or reducing the frequency of undesirable behaviors from various opportunities to practice classical conditioning. We talked about the operant learning theory, the law of effect with Thorndike as well, but also from areas of the reinforcement as well as punishment. So how these external or these environmental factors really influence the behavior, not so much as relating to the individual, but on the, again, what is centered, teacher-centered, or what the teacher delivers to the student would be considered behavioral learning theory. And again, just looking up at our selection here, talking about, again, that the environment is the most associated component of the behavior, that the source is external by specifically utilizing various techniques and strategies to promote desirable learning, desirable behaviors, right, which is the main thing. Also remember that the teacher's role is the giver of knowledge. Remember that they are there to instruct the students, to really facilitate and have that command style of teaching, that they are solely responsible for disseminating the information. It's teacher driven, not student driven, through the various methods of curriculum and feedback, using a book, using textbooks, lecture style, very I speak, you take notes, you learn type of thing. Students are very passive as a result, right? Remember that they are sitting in their desks, taking notes, going through worksheets and things like that, that the teacher is really driving the instructional methods. But finally, this is an appropriate use of instruction in those that are responsible for skill acquisition, such as physical education, music, are certainly really important to use behavioral learning theory, because those are all about acquiring those specified, specific skills. So if you look at our metaphor that we went back to originally, but remember that the teacher is right here, providing the balloon, which is the student, but the information that they are controlling. So they are controlling the amount of information that is being sent up into the students, or what they are learning about, how much they're learning, right, the size of the balloon. So it is all teacher driven and command style of teaching. Think back to lecturing and traditional style of education. Now, cognitive learning theory is, again, pretty much quite the opposite, I guess, is what you can say. And to get a better understanding, I'd like for you to click on the link here and take you to a video that will show you cognitive learning theory in action with regards to teaching math. So click on that link, see what you observe, and I'll refer back to it in the following slides. So cognitive learning theory is really, in contrast to behavioral learning theory, is the relationship between the individual and the environment is the key focus of this learning theory. So from a cognitive perspective, a person does not necessarily view the same environment the same way as others do, versus behavioral learning theory, everybody's pretty much on the same page and everybody is supposed to perceive it equally. Much like you're watching this PowerPoint. At the end of it, you're all going to perceive it and learn from it a little bit differently than everyone else, right? That is just based on our individual perceptions. A cognitive approach to learning also explores how individual differences in knowledge and experiences specifically really influence the way we interpret our environment. and as a result, what we learn from that specific interaction. So kind of in relating to that, understanding the relationship between the individual and his or her environment is so important. So really getting to know your students is the key behind cognitive learning theory. So at the heart of the most cognitive approaches to understanding learning is the notion that knowledge is constructed by the learner, learner-driven, and affected by the learner's prior experiences. So what do you already know, not what I'm going to teach you. Everybody's on the same page. And really all cognitive learning theories are constructivist in nature, that they all emphasize active roles of learning and making meaning out of their experience, not just rote memorization. So just some pictures here to kind of highlight, but up here on the right hand side, so this is a traditional approach to behavioral learning theory. The teacher will tell you everything that I need to tell you. I will be the disseminator of information, and you are going to copy your notes and read it and memorize it, and everybody will be good. Well, cognitive learning theory, or constructivism is another term I'm going to be using, is this B example here. So the teacher asks, what do you need to know? How can I help you understand? How can I develop your own understanding? And creating simulations, or learning experiences that help students construct based on what they already know. And then the student, replying, I'll tell you what I already know. I will show you what I already know. So it's it's almost like a flipped classroom in essence. A few other pictures here. Certainly the teacher provides, sets the scene down here in cognitive learning theory, and then gives the students the steps they need to attain the target. Now that everyone's ladder is going to look a little bit differently. One student might need a bigger step versus a smaller step based on what they are, being provided. So everyone's a little bit differently, but with all of the steps, they're all relevant. So they build on one another, and you have to get the first step to go to the second step, and so on and so forth. Cognitive learning theory is also problem solving, or the ability to inquire or discover or work within groups as well. Now, it's not only group work, but that's a big highlight of it. Excuse me. So right here is a picture of some team building skills. You might have seen this one before, where a whole group is having to hold on and pull back on the rope equally, and that they can all stand up at the same time. Now, if one partner does not pull back, then the other partner across, or somebody in that circle, will fall over. So it is a way to problem solve. It is a way to interact. It is a way to learn through activity, and not just a passive way of taking notes and taking a test, so to speak. So there's quite a bit of personalization associated with cognitive learning theory. Learners construct their own knowledge out of what they already know based on past experiences, or things that they have done. Knowing also that the brain is always active. Now you might think, what do you mean active? I mean that they're always processing, they're always diving in, they're always conceptualizing what's going on and making sense out of their world. They're not passively sitting there just dumping in the information, but their brain is problem solving and trying to figure things out and solve problems. They're also determining what they actually will learn in a sense. Now the teacher is again trying to get them to that target, but the student is almost determining what steps they take, how about to get there, right? The end result is always the product, but how students get there perhaps doesn't really matter in some essence in cognitive learning theory. So I'm going to put up a couple of acronyms for you. When you think of, or when I say TO, what do you think of? How about King James? What do you think of ADA? What does that mean to you? AP and MLS. So what do all of those things mean to you? Well, if you are a avid sports fan, you might think TO stands for Terrell Owens, who is a football player. Now, if you are a Canadian like myself, you might associate TO with Toronto, which is another name that we utilize for it. It's all based on past experiences. I don't watch a lot of football. I don't know about TO, but I know about Toronto, which is, part of the area, well, in essence, of the country that I am from. How about King James? Do you actually think of LeBron James because you watch a lot of basketball? Or do you think of the Bible, a version, King James version of the Bible, right? Based on your past experiences and what you know is what you make meaning out of these words. How about American Diabetes Association for ADA? Another would be the American Dental Association, American Disabilities Association. So ADA could mean a lot of different things. How about AP? AP could mean a bunch of different things too. For instance, the Associated Press, or assistant principal, or assistant producer. All depends on what you're in. Are you in administration? Are you in schools? Are you in media for Associated Press? Or are you in entertainment for assistant producer? What about MLS? When I say that, what do you think of? Well, I thought of, at least a little while ago, when my husband and I were looking for houses, the multiple listing service, which is a realtor-based service. But my son, on the other hand, he thinks of MLS, or Major League Soccer. So cognitive learning theory is a direct result of interpreting things differently based on our experiences, our backgrounds. We perceive and see things in a different way. So cognitive learning theory, kind of outlining what we talked about for behavioral learning theory, really focuses on the individual behavior analysis and not on the environmental behavior analysis, which is important. The source is really internal. Of course, each learner interacts based on their past experiences and their past knowledge. So it's a little bit different for everybody, and how they process information is also different. Even tying to learning styles here. Some of us are better or prefer to learn verbally versus kinesthetically. Others prefer to learn, visually versus interpersonally. So it's a very internal perspective of how you learn. The goal is to create meaningful learning with our real life, our world, and problem solving. And so, making sure that we are internalizing what we're learning, that it makes sense to us, it's applicable to us, right? If I taught you calculus, which is important, it's problem solving, right? But how does it apply to you specifically? It is how I really reach you and how you can internalize this, which I like to think that most of our lectures have some type of personal application associated, and that's not just rote memory, memorization. The teacher's role is, of course, the facilitator of learning. So they are there, but they are not the sole director of the learning. So, the teacher gives them the framework that they actually need, but the student actually goes ahead and does it on their own. So they set it up, but the student takes themselves through the learning experience. It is not all command style or teacher directed. And the method, of course, is based on prior knowledge and linking to what I already know, or terminology that we're going to be talking about called scaffolding, right? Connecting it to what I have done or what I've experienced, or what information I already know can I learn from this experience. I put up some pictures up here to kind of show you, and I think this little guy right here, he's got all the tools that are associated with cognitive learning theory, right? As a teacher, we provide the tools that students need to go through this experience. I gave you a picture before of E.T. and how that, watching that movie, we had different, my brother and I had different interpretations of it, that I was scared of the movie. It's the same movie, but based on my experiences, I thought it was scary. My brother, on the other hand, loved it. And then finally over here, think of the framework as the teacher gives as a sandbox, and I'm giving you all these tools in here to construct a sandcastle. Now, based on your prior experience, this might be your end product. It's a sandcastle, but you know what you know to build, this is what you do. But if you have even more experience, you can build something even more elaborate. So the teacher does not necessarily say that do it this way. They might say, go ahead and do it the way you know and see what you come up with. So it's very individualized learning styles. It is not one size fit all. The teacher sets up the framework and the students learn from it.